Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. It's a community that has a gang and a drug problem. This week, APTN has been introducing you to members of the Samson Cree Nation in Alberta who've lost their loved ones to gun violence. On today's final part, APTN's Chris Stewart sat down with Samson Cree Nation Chief Vernon Saddleback to see what is being done to try to stop the violence.
Trina Susay Nanamihu and Shay Lauren Buffalo lost their sons earlier this month to gun violence. Jeremy Susay was shot and killed at a convenience store, and Jordy Buffalo Cryer was shot and wrapped in a tarp. His body was found in a ditch. The community has had over 700 assaults this year alone, multiple gun crimes, drug arrests, and members want help from leadership. APTN spoke to Samson Cree Nation Chief Vernon Saddleback for what is being done to help the community. He says that drugs have become a serious problem.
Methamphetamine is one of the problems that we have in our community right now. And so that's kind of what we're kind of focusing on within the nation, that, you know, meth is becoming a problem in our community. We met with the RCMP yesterday and they confirmed that fentanyl is coming into our community slowly, but methamphetamine definitely has a hold. It's in our community, and it has a hold in our community now.
And he says action is being taken.
We're going to do something about this. I met with the administration, and we're going to start with an education process first. You know, I think it's time for us to educate and train the people of Samson Cree Nation. This is what meth is. You know, if your children are on meth, if you're a family, or if you know someone, here's the signs, and here's what you can do about it.
The first session with members was yesterday. Chief Saddleback says the sessions were very successful. Another session is planned for Friday. He says that he has heard from members and action is being taken.
They're giving us a message. No matter what they're saying, they have a message, and it needs to be heard, and needs to be listened to. And that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We are kind of looking, all right, there's something going on at the homes, right? What's going on? How can we go in there and support these families, you know? And that's what we've kind of done. I mean, when we had some of these homicides, our departments were amazing. They responded well. That we pulled people out of homes and moved them to Edmonton Park temporarily in hotels to keep people safe, make sure, and we provide great grief support.
He says the Muskwachees RCMP have done a good job, but they cannot cover everything, and a tribal police is an option. He is looking at federal funding to do so.
They do the Criminal Code of Canada, we're missing civic policing. So the RCMP don't help us with preventative work on any level, and that's not their fault, that's just not their mandate, right? And so it does leave that void. And again, that's why in Samson we're looking at, we've got to hire our own, one or two guys to be part of our tribal policing, help us with that civic enforcement.
He says he wants to consult with elders on the issue of banishment and possibly putting it into law.
It's my own personal opinion, but if someone is guilty of killing a Samson Cree Nation member, they should be banished. No questions asked. You've lost your rights to be in our territory if that's the kind of person that you are, right? And so I want to pose that question to the elders.
Chief Saddleback says there is another option suggested by councillors.
You have to look at the ambulance calls, you have the police calls we have, we have these homicides that have happened, the drug activity, we have to look at all of that, do we need to call a state of emergency?
He says that option will be looked at after the education sessions are completed, with the goal of reducing crime numbers and making the community safe. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Samson Cree Nation.
It's been nearly 3 years, but finally a settlement has been reached between the Vancouver Police Department and a grandfather and a granddaughter who were handcuffed outside a bank of Montreal. APTN's Tina House has more.
Handcuffed and questioned by police, all for simply trying to open a bank account. Back in December of 2019, this is what happened to Maxwell Johnson Sr. and his then 12-year-old granddaughter, Tori Ann, after presenting a status card. It was going to be her first bank account. Today, flanked by elders and leaders of the Celtic Nation, Maxwell and Tori Ann, along with their family, entered this press conference to announce developments in a Human Rights Tribunal complaint they filed against the Vancouver Police Department.
Today is the end of a legal complaint process and the beginning of HELSIC, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, and the Vancouver Police working together to address systemic discrimination against Indigenous people in policing.
The amount of the settlement was not revealed, but for Maxwell and Torianne, the trauma caused by that fateful day is still evident on both of their faces.
What happened to Tori, myself? One of the things I keep seeing is my granddaughter standing on that street crying while she's being handcuffed. I don't think any parent or grandparent should ever see that in their lifetime. She must have been about 20, 30 feet away from me, and all I could do was just stand there and not do nothing. I'll never ever get that image out of my head.
A very visibly emotional Torianne, now 15 years old, addressed the media.
We were on a family trip in Vancouver, and we were supposed to be making good memories together. Instead, what happened to me and my grandfather traumatized me. I'm still healing from that day. I want to tell everyone that Indigenous people experience discrimination, including children like me. From when we're kids, we understand that people treat us differently because of what we look like.
Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond is legal counsel for the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. She says that the agreement signed today is historic and points to a new relationship between Indigenous people and the Vancouver Police Department.
In terms of this settlement, it requires the Vancouver Police Board, APTN Nation, and the Union of BC Indian Chiefs to work over the next several years on some key things. First of all, overhauling police training and include police training on anti-Indigenous racism to ensure that police in Vancouver have cultural humility and cultural competency training, and that they have training on how to deal with interactions involving First Nations people when status cards are involved.
The APTN Nation will be hosting a potlatch funded by the Vancouver Police Department next month. The 2 officers involved have been invited to attend. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Time for a quick break, but first a look ahead to tomorrow. Lindsay Richardson will be our host from Ottawa for Friday's Truth and Reconciliation Day event. Here she is with a preview.
Well, we're in the final phases of setup here at LeBreton Flats, where tomorrow it will be the epicenter of activity as thousands of people are expected to turn out to attend the first ever commemorative event marking the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. On the docket, speeches from Indigenous leaders, musical performances, and testimony from survivors themselves. I'll be posted here with a full crew ready to bring you updates and commentary during a pre- and post-ceremony show. So be sure to tune into APTN News live and online for all the latest. I'll see you then.
Welcome back. A Manitoba couple who met in residential school have now been together for 40 years. While they didn't experience the hardships many faced while in residential school, they did have to grow up outside of their home communities, and that had an impact on them. Tamara Pimentel has their story.
This went on our jackets, right?
For Jennifer and Darcy Wood, their time at the Portage La Prairie Residential School in the early 70s led to friendships and experiences that pushed them out of their comfort zones.
I was involved with the sports in the school as well. As part of the basketball team, even the football.
We made a lot of friends there. And that's where I met Darcy.
Little did they know their friendship would last a lifetime. Jennifer and Darcy married in 1992. The pair were both raised by residential school survivors. They didn't experience abuse during their time in the institution. They even went home for Christmas. But the couple says they now feel disconnected from their communities. Darcy is from Garden Hill in northern Manitoba.
Growing up, I remember a lot of times I was in the bush, and I loved that life. I missed it. But that was during the fur trade type of thing. That's how we survived. That way of life I stopped. That's when I was 7 because I had to go to school. My dad said, "You can't. The world is changing. You gotta go to school."
I came to residential school from northern Manitoba, from Oxford House. My father brought me there. The school they felt was inadequate in Oxford House. So when we got to the school, I brought in my suitcases and Dad was with me and he told me, I guess I'll see you. And I didn't know he was going to leave.
Jennifer says leaving her father meant leaving his teachings on the land.
He was a very skilled hunter and fisherman. And as well, he spoke the language fluently. And just being in an environment with a family, you're disconnected. And when you go back to the community, a lot of people will treat you different because you left the reserve and the community. And a lot of people think that you're either acting different or looking different and dressing different. So you always felt a slight disconnect in that way.
Jennifer and Darcy have broken a cycle many face due to intergenerational trauma. They have 11 grandchildren, enough to create their own sports team. Darcy runs 2 nonprofit organizations bringing renewable energy and healthy food to communities in northern Manitoba. And Jennifer works for the National Centre of Truth and Reconciliation, bringing a voice to survivors.
We were fortunate in our time at residential school that we didn't experience getting abused, because a lot of the survivors across Canada fell to being abused, significantly. That is why a lot of our people are on the streets and are homeless, because they fell to the addictions and dealing with their pain. We don't have the resources in Canada to accommodate that need. And I believe that going forward, I hope that the government will step up and start recognizing what their survivors need and start putting some resources and funding towards that.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And the National Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available for survivors and others who might need support. That number is 1-866-925-4419. Now we have breaking news out of Saskatchewan right now. The Saskatoon Police Major Crimes Unit will be sending out a press release shortly confirming that remains have been found near where they have been searching for 30-year-old Megan Gallagher. The Métis woman has been missing since 2020. They have not confirmed they are Gallagher's remains. Currently, there are 8 people charged in her killing. The police started a search near St. Louis, Saskatchewan early this morning. The family is on site. We will bring you more as this story develops, and you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca, for the latest. Now, coming up after the break, we'll speak with residential school survivor Lorraine Seymour about what the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation means for her. Stick around. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This from the beautiful region of Kananaskis, Alberta. Crystal Blaine shared this photo as she described a gorgeous fall day, perfect for paddleboarding. Wow, what a view. That's thanks for that, Crystal. You can send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 19 in Halifax, 15 with showers for St. John's, 7 with rain in Kuujjuaq, rain, and 13 in Nain. Sunny and 17 for Montreal and Val-d'Or. 20 under sunny skies in Sault Ste. Marie, 18 under the sun in North Bay. Sunny and 18 in Thunder Bay, sunny and 17 for Sioux Lookout. 12 is the high for God's Lake, Norway House and the Paw. 22 in Winnipeg, sunny and 25 for Dauphin. 23 in Regina, showers and 24 for Saskatoon. 18 in cloudy in Meadow Lake, rain, and 12 for La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 22 in Peace River, 17 with rain in Fort McMurray. 21 in rain in Edmonton, 22 with showers for Lethbridge. Sunny and 19 in Vancouver, sun's out, and 20 for Victoria. 19 with rain in Prince George, showers and 21 for Smithers. 7 in Old Crow, 13 in Whitehorse. Sunny and 13 for Yellowknife, showers and 15 in Norman Wells. +3 and showers in Sax Harbor, 9 with rain in Paulatuck. +2 with snow in Chesterfield, +1 and snow in Whale Cove. Snow and -7 in Resolute, -2 in Arctic Bay. With the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation coming up tomorrow, we continue to speak with political leaders and survivors ahead of the day. Lorraine Seymour is a survivor of residential school in Manitoba. And she spoke with Tamara Pimentel to share some of her thoughts ahead of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
I'm here at a sacred fire gathering for residential school survivors in Winnipeg, and I'm here with Lorraine Seymour. She's a survivor of the St. Mary's Indian Residential School. Lorraine, thanks for joining us. Can you just introduce yourself? And a lot of gatherings like this are happening across the country all week leading up to September 30th. How does it feel seeing all of these events taking place?
A lot of the times I feel really uplifted. My heart feels uplifted because it feels like it's finally being recognized and the world is actually talking about it, like our world in Canada. And being raised in Canada, we were always not allowed to talk about it. And my early childhood, and most of my adulthood, we weren't allowed to talk about it. Even our family systems, they go, shh, keep quiet, and because we just weren't allowed. Like there were so many policies about it. So it's like today, it's good that we're being lifted up. That orange is the color. It feels good, but at the same time, I have to remember what it's all about in terms of being taken to the res school, having my hair cut, and learning the intense feeling of abandonment and having to deal with that for my entire existence. I still have to deal with that. That's just part of living now, is like dealing with that sense of being left. We weren't just left by our parents, but the whole Canadian society. So, and then, now the graves are being found. So there's so much intense healing and discussion that needs to be come to surface. Yeah.
And this past year, we've had an apology from the Pope, and he came to Canada to visit. Now we're on our second National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. How has that impacted your healing journey?
For me personally, and I only speak for myself when I talk about the Pope, is I went to see the Pope, and it was an electrical feeling when he put on that headdress. Like I felt the sensation. I was there was a whole bunch of us survivors there, and there was a lady that was in her 80s, and she couldn't hear. She couldn't hear, but she could see, and she felt the sensation of the energy, the electric energy, when that Pope put on that headdress. And there's a lot of survivors I talked to, like just a couple of days ago, that just they don't like the Pope, and they won't accept, they reject. So I think most survivors feel that, rather than how I feel is like, Mono is our healing word in our Anishinaabe. Mono is letting go, come to peace, come to acceptance over it. And that's a struggle to do that, like knowing that we still struggle, our children still struggle with a lot of things, So
a lot of mixed feelings.
Yeah, that's it.
So what does the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation mean to you?
Well, I'm thinking about how sometimes it's kind of phony in terms of what the government, land back. If you really want to feel like this is reconciliation, then let's give some land back so our children don't have to be so impoverished and struggle for school shoes and all backpacks. There's so many programs like that. Like that shouldn't be an issue. Like if reconciliation was real, if they really, really wanted to care about the children today. Just watched something on Netflix last night called For Love, and the story's still the same as it was when I was a little girl. Yeah.
So whether people are going to school or work or have the day off, what do you hope Canadians take away from this day?
Well, I hope they're open-hearted to understand what really happened in this country, and be get educated on what really happened here in this country, and get educated on how the consequences of those policies affect us, like especially MMIW, G2S, like those are real today consequences of and the impacts of colonization, assimilation, and all the Indian policy that, you know, oppressed us. Get educated. That's what I want them to do. That would be great.
And is there anything else that you would like to share with us before I wrap up here?
Well, I guess my message is always love. Like, you know, when I was telling you about going to see the Pope and my dismantled relationships with my family members, mostly my brothers, and rebuilding those in a good way. Like, you know, hearing the words, I love you, from my brother was the most amazing thing.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your voice with us.
You're welcome.
Love hearing that story about Lorraine and her brother. Always good to hear from you, Lorraine. That's all the time we have for today, but a reminder, APTN will have a full day of programming tomorrow, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, including Remembering the Children, a special commemorative live event from Ottawa. That starts at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be here live half hour before that show, and again after the commemorative event, with guests here in studio. Also a new documentary called The Road to Truth by Tina House will air tomorrow. And our newscast will start a half hour later than usual tomorrow night. It's going to be a special day. We hope you can join us. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We will see you back here tomorrow.